Deploying $1 million app is not as hard as you probably think. And I know this because I took this app with no coding experience from 0 to 9k in recurring revenue in just 2 months. And I know this sounds crazy, but AI can literally build and deploy apps in minutes. So if you have no technical experience, stick around for the rest of this video because I'm going to show you how to build your first software using AI and deploy it. So sit back, relax, take out a pen and paper while I show you how to build an appointment setting application and a real-time AI assistant built entirely using AI without writing a single line of code. So we're about to build an application using AI, so we're not going to write a single line of code, and we're going to use DataButton to do this. So first thing we need to do is create a new app. So I've got an idea for an app that I'm going to create, and it's called a qualification form. And basically, here's an example of what I mean. On my Instagram account, I have a website here where people can come to that website and they can go ahead and book in an enrollment call with me to help them learn how to build apps using AI coding. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a Tally clone. So I'm going to come back to DataButton and I'm going to explain to DataButton what the app is that I'm building. So what I've done is I've just given it some information on the app that I'm looking to build, and I've explained a little bit about what I want this app to look like. And this information is going to be what's used to create the initial version of the app. So we're going to generate a starting point now using the AI. And this is what it's gone and created for us. Basically, straight away, it's created us a minimum viable product that we can now start to edit and work on. So we're going to just test this out and see what it's created so far. So it gives us our recent forms where we could theoretically click in and see the responses, and supposedly we could then edit them. We can also create a new form, which is also not working yet. So it's given us the basis of something that we want to work. So what we're going to do is prompt it and tell it to start to build out the interface for the editor. All I've done is I've sent through a screenshot of part of Notion, and I've said when I click this button here, it needs to take us to a new page where we can edit and create the form. So it's going to go ahead and implement the form builder interface for us. And then we're going to go ahead and create the form editor page. And the agent is going to actually read through all of the code, read through our instructions, and work out a plan for what it needs to do, and then go ahead and execute that plan for us. Cool, there we go. So it's now created an area for us. So we're going to see if we can actually edit this here. So we can give this form a name. So we're going to say, this is my new form. We now need to make sure that when we're typing here, we are actually not overwriting it. So we're going to take a screenshot and say, so I've gone ahead and I've just explained that actually I want to remove this placeholder when I'm typing, but also if I use a / I want to show a tooltip pop-up type of thing where I can then select the different forms, much like we have within Notion like that. So we're going to see if we can work this out. I want to also see now if I click back, it takes us to the home page. If I click on create new form, it takes us to the untitled form. Now the way this is working is basically the AI is writing the code for us. So I'm going to try typing in now. You can see it's removed the placeholder. If I do the / it's opened up a pop-up. But obviously this pop-up isn't in the same space as where the / is, which we want to actually implement. And I also, when I select short text, it hasn't gone ahead and implemented that new form. So we're going to go ahead and just give it a screenshot and tell it to do those two things. So I've said, great, the pop-up needs to be next to the /. Also, when I select that form, I want to go ahead and actually implement that form into the page. So again, it's going to go ahead, take this on board, and then write the code for me. You can see here now we are actually getting things working. So I can input a short text form. It's gone ahead and created it. I can give it a title. So I could say, please provide your name. Okay, and then we can do another one down here. We could say, for example, we want a multiple choice. The next thing we want to do is add in a preview and a share, so we can go ahead and preview what this would look like. And I want to just work on the UI and the user experience. So it's made all of the forms required by default, but we need a way to now actually remove these forms. So again, if I hover over something, I want to be able to delete it. So it's going to show a little trash can next to it so I can delete it. This is insane. This tool is so good. Look at that, right? So literally just straight away, I've added it in. I can now delete the form. We've also got it's now easier to hover over and delete these things. The next thing I want to be able to do is, first of all, I'm going to fix this pop-up because it's annoying me. Obviously, the reason this is happening is because I'm not being very explicit about what I want it to do. So we're going to go ahead and just wait for it to implement that. Right, there we go. So that looks like it's working now. Wherever I type, it's putting it. So the last thing I'm doing now is I'm trying to move this so it's not quite completely covering. And also, if I type, for example, short, I want it to still show the pop-up, but I want it to actually select the short text. So use that as has the search rather than having to type in here for short. Cool, and there we go, we're done. So now if I search for short, it shows the short one. If I show for long, it shows the long. If I show drop down, it shows drop down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, well, we want a short text. We're going to add in a long text, and we're going to add in a multiple choice. We're going to just go ahead and say to this now, we want to be able to store the responses. So we now need to set up a way to store. So I think it's going to go ahead and do that. It's going to actually create a new API endpoint and use Data Button storage capabilities. And the really cool thing with Data Button is we don't need to worry about setting up databases and all of that. They basically do everything for us. I've created a backend API for the following endpoints. So we've got post, we've got save form, submit response, forms to get all the forms, and form ID. Data is stored using Data Button storage. And so we're going to say add a save button. And then we're going to work our way through this. So now let's just have a quick look in here. You can see how it's created the code for us, right? So this is stuff that we wouldn't, need to be able to do. And with traditional no-code builders, we'd have to actually go in and build out this functionality ourselves. Whereas with things like Data Button, we can just do it straight away. And it's incredibly powerful. And you can see I've literally run into no errors. Cool, so now we've actually got a submit form. I don't know if I actually recorded that bit, but basically what I did is I said through, obviously when we create a new form, right, we need to make sure that we actually automatically add a button, okay? So obviously if I go into here and I add in short text, it's going to go ahead and add in a submit button. So now what we need to do is we need to make sure that when we click that submit button, we are saving the response to the form into the database. So I've just said, try to submit the form, nothing was saved. Also, I'm wondering whether we need to actually have the form saved first before we actually save anything to the database. So let's just have a quick look. So we actually want to be using the submit the response endpoint. So if this doesn't work, we would go through and say, look, we want to use the submit response. Okay, so we've actually now done a thing where we've actually saved the form. It looks like it's saved it into the internal storage under forms. Okay, so it knows that it saved that stuff, and then theoretically now that form has been created. We now need to be able to view that form, and then we can test submitting. Right, so it has gone ahead and it's updated the page, and it's also created a new form page. And you can see when I visit the page, it shows the form that we created. We can go back, we can create a new form, and then we're going to save that one. If we come back to the home page, you can see it's created the onboarding one. I want to work on the submitting the form. So we're going to come back to here and say, right, when I submit a form, we need to save the response to the database. Also, we need a way to view the responses for that form. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in a section at the top, which is like a tab where we can click through. We can have the editor, which is this area here, and then we'll click in and then we can view the submissions for that form. Right, okay. So it's actually gone ahead and broken the form page. So I said read the logs. The page form is now broken. Right? I'll then go ahead and read those logs and then try and fix the page, because one thing that you can do, which is quite useful, if you go to open the preview, we can click into one of these. Okay, if we click on inspect, we can come to console, and then we can actually grab these console logs like this. And the more information it's got on the errors, the easier and the better the chances it will be of actually resolving it. Cool, so it's gone ahead and fixed that. We now have the forms, we can view the form, and we have the responses. So what I've said is great. Now when I submit the form using the forms endpoint, which is this back end here, I want to save the responses using this endpoint here. We'll have a page where we can create them. We'll have a page where we can then view the details about that form. And then we're going to need a final live page that we can share. Added a submission handling directly from the form page instead of the submit button component. We're going to submit that. Cool, it's now submitted it. So it says question 1, test. We've now got that form has been submitted. Can you add the ability to delete forms? So now we're going to clean everything up, we're going to give it a test, and then the last thing we need to do is see if we can actually get a shareable link, and then we can deploy it. So we've basically almost created a full web application in minutes, and this is what it looks like in dark mode. So cool, so it's now gone ahead and it's implemented the edit button and a delete button. If I click the delete button, it takes us into the form, so we need to actually fix that, but for now I don't really care too much. We're going to then delete the form, we can then delete it, and theoretically it's now gone. We can go into this one, delete the form, delete it. The only thing I will say is obviously when you're making apps like this, you've got to be very explicit about where you want things to be put, right? Because if I change this, at the moment it's put edit form at the top, right? So if I edit the form and I put down here $500 and then save the changes, and I go back and I come back, it's done two things. It's created a new form, Okay, but it has saved those changes. So we want to make sure that it's actually not creating a new form. The reason that's happened, I think, is because it's just using the same endpoint as the create one. And the second thing, as I've said, well, actually, this form here should still be the editor, right? I should still be able to edit stuff, right? I'm just going to do one last test, actually, where I'm going to just submit this. We'll select option 2 and submit. It's adding them in weirdly, right? So we've got email, age, what's your monthly income, email, age, what's your monthly income. So this form responses, these should be columns, right? Rather than question, response, and submitted at. I've said we're going to go ahead and create a page. Okay, this has got to be a page that people can submit the form elements. Ideally, this is a page that dynamically pulls in the elements for the form based off the ID of that form. All right, so it's now created us a new page, which is public form. So I've also told it to actually fix this layout. So we'll have the questions will actually be the headers, and then each row is going to be a unique response. While it's doing that, I want to show you guys something really cool, because DataButton has obviously set this up so I can use this on mobile as well, which is really cool. It's not perfect, but you can see we can actually play around with this on mobile. We can scroll across to see the other bits and pieces. But now we're going to come to the form. We're going to click on Share Form, and you can see it says Preview Form. So it says page not found. So what's happening is when I preview the page, so when I'm in just the development mode, you can open preview here and you can preview the page, right? So this is the URL of my app that I'm building. But as soon as I go into a form, okay, it adds this form ID parameter to the end of it, which is how it knows what form to display on the page here. But as soon as I share the form, you'll notice it uses this URL, okay, which is the deployed version of the app, which is fine, but it does / that. Okay. However, if I take this URL and at the end of it I add public form, and then I just add that of the ID, it brings up the form. So I'm now actually seeing that, and then we're going to come back to, I think it's this form, responses. Oh, it has. Okay, public 66,500. So the form is working. So what I've done is I've basically explained the URL differences, and hopefully it's now going to take that on board, and it's going to then apply the changes and fix those problems. We're basically at the point now where this is deployed, this is working. We just need to fix this final error, and we have an app that we can actually start to gather responses, right? So I could have this here as an app that I'm using in my business, and I can create forms. I can then actually share these forms and put them on maybe my Instagram page, and then I can use that to qualify people. Just open the page here. I'm just going to refresh this now, make sure it's using the updated version, share the form, preview the form, takes us directly to that form. So now what we're going to do is take this and say, so I'm just going to tell it to remove one of those submit buttons. We don't need both of them. Cool, it's now fixed that. We've got the submit button. So now I think we are done. So what we're going to do is go and click on deploy, and now we can deploy our application. And just like that, we have built our first application, deployed it with a single URL that you guys can go ahead and visit and actually start using, just by using DataButton, just by talking to it and building. And I've shown you every single step of the way. So there we have it. We have deployed our application. So we're going to go ahead and test this out. We're going to go ahead and view the URL, and it says here create beautiful forms in minutes. So we're going to dive in and give this a test now. So let's go ahead and create a new form. So I'm going to call this apply to my one-to-one mentorship. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to write out some stuff, and then I'm going to go ahead and get them to actually submit some information. We're going to go for short form text. Now for some reason it's put it over there in the corner, so we can always go ahead and fix that, but I just want to see if this works now. We're going to put in here, oh there we go, it's working. Long text, so we're going to call this name. Actually we want to delete that. So then we're going to have another one, we'll have another short form. This can be the email. We're then going to have another one, and in here we're going to say multiple choice, and then in here we're going to put $0, $500, and that'll probably do. And now we're going to go ahead and save this form. There we go, it's gone ahead and created the form for us. So what we can do is copy this, or we could actually go back and we can see it's created the form for us. So now what we want to do is actually go in and see if there's any responses. Well, there's no responses in our form yet. We can actually share the form if we want to, and we can preview that form. It's going to take us to the live public page where we can actually now submit this form. So let's go ahead and submit it and say, well, my name is Sebastian, my email sebastian@gmail.com. And then my monthly income is $1,000 plus. We're then going to submit that, and it's done. Now we would probably want to add in a thank you page or some celebration or something, but we can come back to here. We can close this, and let's say, fingers crossed, Has that response come through? Let's refresh the page. Check the responses, and there we go. The response has come through. It's honestly incredible what you can build in such a short period with AI. So there we have it. We just built a full appointment setting application and deployed it using AI. But I want to push this a little bit further. Can we build a real-time voice assistant AI that we can talk to and the AI can respond in real time without any delays just by using DataButton? So stick around for the next 5 or 10 minutes to see if this is possible. Now, in that previous example, we managed to build a working application pretty easily without any problems. Now I wanted to try and take it one step further and build something a little bit more complicated and integrate our app with an external API. And for this, I thought we would try and use OpenAI's real-time API. Now, if you don't know what this is, it essentially allows us to speak to AI in real time. So this is the documentation, and you'll notice that the real-time API is currently in beta, and it's actually quite complicated to get this set up. So we're going to see how well DataButton can actually handle this, and if we can actually get any support from DataButton to help us set this up. What I've done is I've put together a very simple UI that we can actually start to visualize what this app could eventually look like, and we're going to see how far through this that we can get. Then what I've done is I've given DataButton a documentation link that's going to explain exactly how to get this set up, and I've given it this default prompt. So we're going to send that through and we're going to see if it's able to actually implement these new features. So DataButton has actually built some of the code for us. It's read through the real-time API documentation and it's set up a back-end code for us to get started with. Now we need to go ahead and give it access to our OpenAI key, so obviously we can test this out, but looking at this file, there's not enough in here for this to actually work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the guide for the documentation, and I'm going to just basically scroll through, copy all of this, and give it back to DataButton. So I've given it the access to the real-time API documentation, just copied and pasted it in here, and I've told it to please check this endpoint that it's written, make sure that it's set up the app properly, following the information above, and read through step by step. So it's asked us for the OpenAI key, so we're going to send it the OpenAI key. So DataButton is honestly incredible with writing code and actually setting these things up. But I actually had a chat with them and they've given me a link to a tutorial that they've created that's going to help me get this set up, and it's also got a whole load of example code, which means if DataButton's not able to actually do this, we can go ahead and just use this sample code and just copy and paste it into our app. Okay, so it looks like it's actually created the backend and we're using a WebSocket for the backend. The next thing that we need to do is link that to a front-end component to first of all connect to the real-time API and then actually send the webhook or send our voice to the real-time API. So we're going to tell it to go ahead and do that. So I've actually told it to go ahead and set up that front-end component and explained in a little bit more detail how this is going to work. But I'm also going to go into their tutorial in DataButton and I'm going to copy the real-time API UI component. So I'm just going to scroll down, copy all of this, and I'm going to give it to DataButton so it can actually go ahead and use this for context. Right, so what it's done now is it's created me the real-time API component. Now we're getting some errors, so we're going to try and debug these errors. I'm just going to go back to the practice page as well. We're still getting some errors there. So I've sent through the example code for the back end, and we're going to see if it can take that example code along with what we've already written and context on the real-time API to set up these components. Failing that, we're going to have a conversation with DataButton and see if the guys in their support can actually help us. Okay, so it says that it's set up those changes. What it's done is it's created us a new endpoint. So we're just going to compare these. This one's obviously a lot longer. There's some errors that need resolving. We're just going to delete this speech one because we no longer need it. And now what we're going to do is just refresh the page. And we're just going to come to here. And we're going to copy as much of these logs as we can. And we're going to just send this through. So if this doesn't work, I've actually been having a conversation with the guys at DataButton. They're incredibly quick at responding, but he's offered for me to get on a Google Meet with him so he can show me the ropes and get the real-time API set up. He said it's pretty difficult to get set up, but if I need any help, I can get on that. So we're going to try this. If that doesn't work, we'll have a conversation with him now. So actually, we might as well just see how well their support is. So we're just going to run this now. I'm going to join the Google Meet. I'll see how much of this I can record. Hey, thanks for hopping on so quick. And I've done some stuff with APIs before. I've built several apps before. I'm just struggling with getting the real-time API with the WebSockets and streaming stuff there and back again.
And I'll be curious to see if you think it's good enough. If not, then I can help work with you a bit on trying to get it better.
I was just to start off with, I wanted just to get the chat working so I could talk to it, get a response. My goal was to try and create something where you could talk to it in, I don't know whether you can do this or not, maybe you know, whether you can talk to it in a different language, for example.
How can I assist you today? It seems like you might be testing the microphone or the system. If you have any questions or need assistance.
Part of what we're doing in this app is so we create an API and data button that just forwards traffic. The main reason to do it is API keys, and that does everything in here. So you can just copy this and all this. It connects to OpenAI, the real-time API, and then it forwards traffic.
Okay, I mean, to be fair, so basically it's just we just have the UI component, right? And then we use that API, and then theoretically that will run, that should work. And then because once I've got that in, then I can start messing around with it and maybe, add some more things to it and change the UI a bit as well.
So it is I did spend maybe 5 hours to get this up.
Really? Were you writing this yourself, or did you use Data Button to do this?
Oh, it's a combo, right?
Yeah.
So most of it I could do with Data Button, but
it's a really, really useful call. And he basically explained what was happening, why things weren't working. They've got a demo app that is basically the same app that they've got from this tutorial. And he basically said, just go ahead, copy the code, put it in here, and you have this strong basis. And I want to give a quick demonstration of how this now works. So we're going to basically turn this on. We connect with the real-time API, and then we can actually click the microphone button. What it's going to do is now actually hear what I'm saying, and it's going to wait for me to stop speaking. When I stop speaking for 2 seconds, it should then respond. Hi, can you speak to me in German? I'm a complete beginner, but just respond to me in German. Ask me, hello, how am I?
Hallo, wie geht es dir?
I don't know if you guys heard that. That's actually insane. I am actually talking to an AI right now.
Ja, das ist wirklich faszinierend, oder? Ich bin hier.
And there you have it, guys. We have built an integration with the OpenAI real-time API with the help of Data Button, getting this set up for me. And now, obviously from here, you could go ahead and create all sorts of different features, all sorts of different applications. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this part of the video. And like I say, if you guys want to learn how to build your own apps, or you want to start building your own apps, Data Button is by far one of the best places to get started. I really recommend that you sign up using their link below, get started with an account, and start building your first app.